Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create a brain cane and a few things with it. I'm never going to get over that name. But anyway, it basically looks something like this. So you can see it's like the half of a brain. That name gets me each time. So anyway, the way I like to do it is with a Skinner blend. You don't have to use a Skinner blend. You can replace it with just a solid colour. And then I like using a neutral colour with it. So I'm going to be using white. Now I'm going to be using Kato today, as it's starting to warm up here a little bit, and so I'm having a little bit of trouble with the primer for a cane. But you can use any brand for this technique. There are better brands. Sculpey 3 is not a recommended brand. I'd recommend Primo, Kato or Fimo for this. Or Cernit. Cernit works as well. But anyway, you'll need a Skinner blend or a solid colour. And since I'm using Kato today, it was done with a Skinner blend between purple and turquoise Kato. And I've also got Kato white. So these were all done on the thickest setting of the pasta machine. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stack them like this. And then I'm going to bring my tissue blade and I'm just going to trim away the excess. Okay, so once that's done, now what you need to do is run this through a pasta machine. So I'm not sure if I mentioned before, but each of these was run through on the thickest setting of my pasta machine, which is a 7. We're now going to go and run it through the pasta machine again on the thickest setting. And I'm going to be lengthening the Skinner blend. So I'm going to run it from this end to this end and not from this end to this end. So that it looks like that. Then I'm going to go down another 2 settings to my number 5 and again lengthen the Skinner blend. Like that. Then I'm going to take it down another 2 to my number 3 setting and again lengthen it. There we are. And here's what it looks like. So we've got a little bit of excess on each end. So I'll just trim that off and we'll pop that in the scrap pile for a later use. Okay. Now what we want to do is we want to decide what the centre of our cane is going to be and what the outside of our cane is going to be. So I think I want the blue to be the centre. So that's the side that I'll start on. And basically, all you do is you just fold these on top of each other randomly. Like this. And it is best to do it at random. Then I like to kind of go around the cane as I fold. It can be a little fiddly. Just like this, all the way around. And sometimes I'll double back, sometimes I won't. Just like this. So you'll basically do that until your entire cane or your entire piece of clay is used up. There we go, just like that. Now the longer the piece that you have, the more wiggles you're going to be able to make. And then I like to condense it down, just like this. Just pushing down on the top, rotating, push down on the top, rotate. And then I like to round off the cane by just rolling against my work surface, then push it down again so that it doesn't lengthen, and then rounding it out again. And that is basically how I create a brain cane. There we go. So now I'm just going to bring over my flexible tissue blade. And I'm just going to cut this. And there's what it looks like. So it's fairly interesting, I think, but it's a little boring, I'd say. You could do a few things with this, maybe put the two together like that to create a entire brain, I guess. Or you can do a few other things. So I'm going to be doing a mukume gane, and I'm going to be doing a kaleidoscope. So I'll just show you how to do those. So I'll cut one in half, and I'll first do the mukume gane. So all you do for that is just flatten it out to create layers. And this I find creates a really interesting effect. So I'll just flatten it out. It doesn't matter which way you flatten it out, you just want to flatten it out. Okay, then I'll run this through my pasta machine on the thickest setting. And I'm going to be lengthening it this way so that this stripe lengthens and not widens. Like that. Then I'm going to take it down to my number 4 and lengthen it again so that we can stack it. Yeah. I'll just cut off this excess. And I'll just stack it 3 times. Twice, sorry about that. So that I have 4 pieces in the stack. Okay. I'll just chop off that piece. And I'll show you what I want to do with the leftovers as well. Just to show you what they look like. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a ruler that I have, which has a blunt end. You can use a credit card, or you could even use the top of your tissue blade. So that's the sharp end, this is the blunt end. You could turn it upside down and use it like that, but that's a little dangerous. So I like to use a ruler instead. You can use a credit card too. And I'm just going to push lines in from the top, then squish it back together again. Just like that. Flip, and now this time I did the lines going this way. We're going to go the opposite way this time, on the other side. And now I'm not going the entire way through the stack, I'm going about halfway. Okay, so that's going to create an interesting effect. So we're just pushing those layers together and smooshing it up in different ways. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ruler and I'm going to go through from the side of the stack and do a few lines like that, and then squish that back together, go through from this side and do the same. Okay, and now we're ready to cut it. Once we've merged the layers together, of course. Okay, and I'll just stick that down onto my workspace, and I'll take my flexible blade and I'm holding it near the middle. So if you've watched my marker shift tutorial, I've shown this in detail already. I'll include a link to that tutorial in the links below. But I basically, quite a few people hold their blades like this, and if it's a flexible blade, often it can tend to bend and then you won't get an even slice. You want to hold it as close to the middle as possible and keep your hands resting on your work surface as you slide across whatever you're slicing. So there's the first piece, and it's going to change as we go through. There we are, it's starting to change. There we go, so we can see that we're starting to get different lines now. Okay, and sometimes it can go out of shape, so you need to just push it back into shape every now and then. There we are, so now we're getting almost like a crosshatch look. So that's a really cool look, I think. And if you wanted this look through the entire piece, you could just cut it like that, or you could just press it in. So instead of just doing the lines, so you can see on this side it's got the lines that are going this way. If you wanted to get this look through the entire piece, you do this through the entire slab, then you turn it and you'd do the lines in the opposite way through the entire slab, and then you'd get this look through the entire slab. But I like the unpredictableness of it, so I like to do it like this. So that's basically the Mukume Gane with the brain cane. I'm never going to get over that name. So I'll put these aside and I'll just show you the kaleidoscope, because I think the kaleidoscope looks quite interesting as well. I've done a test already to see what it's going to look like. Okay, so with the kaleidoscope, what I like to do is, if I have a line like this, this will be my first triangle, or the first point on the triangle. That way I can see if my cane isn't distorting. So if that line stays straight the entire way that the entire time I reduce, then I'm reducing correctly. If it starts wandering off to the one side, then my cane isn't getting reduced evenly, and so the kaleidoscope won't look good. So it's good to have a little guideline like that. And you'll just reduce it like you do any triangular cane. I actually have two tutorials on a kaleidoscope. I have one on a leftover kaleidoscope and I have one on a normal kaleidoscope. I'll provide links to both of those in the links below. So you'll just carry on doing this until you've reduced it enough to get 6 pieces out of it. Okay, so now it's reduced enough for me to cut 6 pieces out of it. So I'll just trim off these excess pieces, and I will cut this in half and line it up, and then cut 3 pieces out of it. Okay. Now the trick is to line it up. And you want it to line up on both sides, so just make sure that you check both sides of your kaleidoscope. And you might have to rotate it. These pieces, you might have to rotate them to get them to match. And each time you fit in a piece, just make sure that you check the other side. Okay, so there I had to flip for it to fit. And I'll check the other side. And we've just got one more piece to fit in. And that one I had to flip as well. Having a little bit of trouble figuring out where this one goes. I'm sure I'm being a little bit of a silly Billy. Oh, there we go. The last piece is sometimes the last piece can be a little difficult sometimes. So just spend enough time to make sure that you get it right. And then before you squish it together, just go through and make sure that you haven't accidentally made a mistake. I sometimes make mistakes and then I squish it together and then I realise too late, and then the pieces are all stuck together and then I can't take it apart and fix it. So just before you squish it together, double check that you've got it right. Once you're happy with it, just reduce it slightly. And I do that by resting it on the tile, so there's a flat side on the tile and a flat side facing up, and I tap on that flat side, rotate, tap, rotate, tap. And I carry on doing that until I feel that the pieces are stuck together, or until I've reduced it to the size I like. And that I find is the best way to reduce a kaleidoscope. Then what I'll do is I'll take my tissue blade, and when I cut with this, I put tension on the blade. So since this is wiggly, if you just hold out the ends and then cut, you can sometimes get a good cut, but often it will bend and your slice will be warped. So I like to hold it as close as I can, and I will put tension on the blade, so I'm pulling on each side slightly, and I'll cut. And the reason I'm using a flexible tissue blade as opposed to the firmer tissue blade is because this is thinner, it will provide a better cut. Okay, and that's what it looks like. So I bring over the other one that I made, and it's slightly different, but it's also another brain cane kaleidoscope. So that's basically how I create. Those are the things that I like to create with the kaleidoscope. Now you are going to get these leftover pieces, so I'll just bring these over. And all I do with that usually is I just ball this up into a ball. And there are many different things you can do with this. I've got quite a few leftover technique tutorials. I've got a Natasha bead, I've got the Starry Night technique, I've got a stroppel cane, there's the leftover feather one, there's so many, so I'll provide a link to a playlist to all of those, as I found that they're very helpful. So I'll just put it into a log, and then I like to twist because I want to make a marble with this. And as you can see, because it was a cane with these bits that I put into here had quite a bit of detail, it will give you quite a fine, interesting marbled look. And I'll just roll until it feels rigid, then roll against the work surface, then twist until it's rigid again, then roll, and so on until I'm happy with it. And I always twist in the same direction. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one end and squish it up against the next, just like this, to shorten it up a bit. And what this will do is it will warp those stripes a bit and make it look more interesting. There we are. So you can see it's looking fairly interesting at the moment. And I'll just squish it up as far as I can possibly get it, because I want to run this through the pasta machine. And then I'll just flatten it out. Like this, so that it's in a bit of a slab. Okay, and then I'm going to run this through my pasta machine on the thickest setting, and I'm going to be lengthening the stripes, not widening it. So I'm going to be going from this end to this end on my number 7. And there's what it looks like. And on the other side. So I might take that down to my number 4 and run through again lengthening the stripes. There we are. And that is what it looks like. So depending on your scraps, you're going to get a different marble. Here's another one I did, and this is quite different. This is where I had quite a bit of white streak through it, so it's going to look a little different with this one. But that is another way to use up your leftovers, I guess. So that's how I like to use my brain canes, and I also like to use them with just the regular normal cane, but I find that cane's a little boring on its own, so I like to do these sorts of things with it. And if you're playing around with canes and you're not quite happy with your cane, maybe it doesn't work out, this is another way to salvage your cane. So if your cane wasn't perfect, you're not really going to see it in the mukume gane or the marble. You might see it in the kaleidoscope, of course, but even then, if you had reduced it right and your image was even the whole way through the cane, you would still be able to do a kaleidoscope with that. And so this is another way I like to salvage some of my old canes. So anyway, I do hope that tutorial was helpful to you, and if it was, please do check the links below, as there'll be a link to my website down there, jessamatutorials.com, where I have articles where you can send in, I have articles and I have places where you can send in pictures and all sorts of things that I'm sure you guys will love. So please do check that out. And I'll also have some suggested tutorials down there as well. And I'll also have a link to my Patreon account. And on my Patreon account, I have full-blown project tutorials, tip tutorials, colour recipes, tips, all sorts of things on there that I'm sure that you'll love. So be sure to check that out, as that's always helpful to me. And as always, I hope to see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.